Welcome back, everyone. In this lesson, we're going to write a practical application. It's going to be fairly simple, but I think it's going to be eye-opening for you guys about the consequences. This is called the retirement calculator. Throughout these series, we will be writing more practical applications that relate to data science, data mining, picture manipulations or photo manipulations, games, etc. So there's a lot coming, but it's good to start off right off the bat, even though we've only been through 10 of these introductory modules, to write something useful along with it. So let's go ahead and get started. This is called the retirement calculator, and I'm going to start a brand new Python 3 notebook. And let's go ahead and call this one 012 retirement calculator to deal with the so-called retirement gamble. So retirement calculator. We are going to import math. We do need the math module. Let's do Shift Enter, make sure it works. Now we have not worked with actually getting input from the user. We're going to learn that in this lesson too. I'm going to have a principal. Depending on who you talk to, how you spell it, but principal is input, enter your principal. So we haven't seen input before. Let's actually just play with this for a moment. I'm going to print principal and type of principal. So if I put in $1,000, notice it puts it out that it's in fact a string. So everything actually comes in when you read it from the screen, whether it's from the command line or, as we learn later in these series, from the graphical user interfaces. They always come in as basically text or string. We can, of course, change it on the fly. I want this to be a floating point, which is a real number. If I do that and put in 1,000, it actually converts it on the fly to a floating point. Of course, if you do something that is silly, then you will get, as expected, an error message. We're not doing error handling right now. We'll have more to say about error handling later. Right now, we're going to assume that the user is well behaved. So let's go ahead and continue with the rest of this. Put my extra parentheses there. I'm going to have an interest variable, and this will also be a floating point. Input, enter the interest rate, like 7.5. Give them an idea. Now keep in mind that when they type that in, this is going to be, 7.5% is really treated as 0.075. So what we really need to do is to take the interest and set it equal to the interest divided by 100. So let's do that right here. The number of years they expect to have before they retire. I'm going to again have an input, enter, oh boy, my spelling has been just terrible the past few days. Enter number of years before retirement. We are going to allow fractional, that's why it's a floating point. And contribution. And this is going to be a floating point, although it really could be an integer in this case. Input, enter monthly contribution amount. There you go. So now that we have all this, we need to put our formulas together. I have two of them over here, retirement, no contribution. So if we don't actually not take the contribution into account, and we're going to have a retirement with contribution. We'll want to take a look at, what the differences might be. Now over here, this is going to be the principal times math.power, that's exponentiation, and this takes two parameters basically. The first parameter itself is going to go in parentheses, and I do want to raise this to a power over here. And this is going to be 1 plus interest divided by 4, and this over here is going to be 4 times years. As I would like this to be rounded up, I can put the round method or round function and round this up to say 2 decimal places, like that. Unfortunately, because of my zoom over here, let me actually go ahead and change this down 1 notch. I think you can still see this just fine. And let's come down over here and do this next one, which is going to be contribution times parentheses, double parentheses, math.power. And let's actually do this as POW. I think power might throw an error message. So math.pow for exponentiation. 1 plus interest divided by 4 as before. And this is going to be 4 times years. Outside we're going to do a -1 and then divided by. Since this is going to go on a separate line, I'm going to do a backslash, which is a way to tell Python that there's a line break here, but ignore it. Remember that I misspelled retirement here. Remember that it's important to Python. So I can continue with the rest of my formula down here, which makes it a little bit makes me have more room basically to work with. So interest divided by years, and I'm going to close this parentheses times 1 plus interest divided by years. And if I want to round this up too, I can put the round function over here and then put a comma to 2 decimal places. I got these formulas off Google, so hopefully they are correct. I believe they are. I'm going to print this out. So your retirement with no contribution, and I do need my quotes here. And we're going to use a placeholder and call the format method of a string and pass to it basically retirement, no contribution. Since I don't want to type all this again, I'm just going to copy that, paste that, and put in with contribution and just change this to with contribution. Now hopefully I don't have any error messages, but I see that this is showing up as a red parentheses, so that is a concern here that there is something missing. Let me just double check to make sure I got all the parentheses straight. So this looks good. -1 divided by parentheses. Yeah, it looks good, so hopefully we'll see. Let's do Shift Enter. Nope, it doesn't like it. It says it's unmatched. So there is a parentheses missing right here, and I need to find out where that is. Contribution. I've got these two opened up, so that's correct. Oh, I misspelled interest here too. Divided by that, and that's 1 plus interest divided by that. 4. This is for that one. And oopsie, I have this matches that, this matches that. So there is a parentheses missing here somewhere. It's kind of weird. I think this is the extra right here that I don't need. So that should make that go away. Yes. Let's try this now. So I'm going to start with a $50,000 principal at a rate of, let's say, 7%. And let's say 50 years before retirement, and the monthly contribution amount of, say, $500. And I got all this wonderful error message here, and I can see that I made a mistake. So I can see where the parentheses issue was apparently. So right here, this in fact was a second parentheses here because my power, I need to have an extra parentheses right here to make sure that that is correct. Let's go ahead and do this again. $50,000 at 7% annual rate, 50 years before retirement, and let's say $500 monthly. Well, I got another thing. It's probably a spelling problem. Let's actually see that. I've got retirement with contribution. There you go. All right. Let's do it again. $50,000, 7%, 50 years, and $500. So those are the numbers that we got, and it's worth actually looking into this a little bit. I am going to bring up Notepad just to give you an idea, and I'm going to copy both of these values right there. So looking at this, we can see that with 7% with no contribution, we would have basically 1.6 million if I were to put in some commas here to make it look a little nicer. And we can do this in Python too. And with $500 a month, as you can see, it makes a huge difference. It's 11 million. Now I want to point this out because I did watch a documentary on so-called retirement gamble by Frontline. And in it, John Vogel, who's the founder of Vanguard, said that these banks take fees, 1%, 2%, 1.5%, 0.5%, whatever, and people don't realize how huge that is. And he said that a 2% fee would translate into 2/3 of your retirement basically going to the bank, which I found just unbelievable. So I wrote this program, and in effect, if we run this again, if the bank is taking 2% and we still have the same stuff, our interest rate would be in effect 5% that we're earning. Interrupt number of years is 50 and $500 a month. And you can see that he is in fact correct, because what happens is we are paying so much in fees to the bank that instead of getting, with no contribution, mind you, with no contribution, instead of getting 1.6 million, we're only getting about $600,000. The other million is going into the bank's pockets. And look at this one. This one, instead of getting about 11 million, we're only getting about 5.5 million. Maybe not quite 2/3, but it's still a huge chunk. So that 2% fee, which they sort of brush off as is nothing big, you can see it's huge. So once I saw this, and unfortunately I was in my 30s at the time, possibly late 30s, I think, or maybe early 40s, I realized why my retirement wasn't growing as I had expected. I went and looked, and there were plenty of fees. So I changed everything to what he recommended, which he calls passive investment or index funds. And that was a good decision, I can tell you. So take a look at this. I hope you enjoyed this session. And by the way, it doesn't matter what numbers you put in, you're going to get the same stuff. You put 10%, and you're earning 10%. If the bank is taking 2%, if you look at it at 8%, you see they're still taking like 2/3 of your income. And keep in mind that the risk and everything is yours. It's your money. It's your risk. They have no risk whatsoever. They just take the money regardless. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We're going to be writing more useful applications as we go along. If you're enjoying these, please share with loved ones and friends, and see you in the next one.